All right. Well, as I said, it's wonderful to see you all today and welcome to the third webinar in our Parents Forever celebration series. My name is Sharon Powell and I'm an extension educator with University of Minnesota Extension, and with my colleagues Ellie McCann, Anita Harris, and Sylvia Alvarez de Davila, we work on the parenting programming for our center. So we are delighted to be involved with Parents Forever as it has evolved through the years. So over the last 25 years, as times have changed for families, Parents Forever has remained adaptive and innovative in its programming. The Parents Forever webinar series objective is to highlight speakers who approach their work in similarly novel and creative ways to address cutting-edge issues for families. This series gives the keynote speakers a platform to share their pioneering work that reflects the spirit of Parents Forever. And today we have a panel of speakers, 3 of the Parents Forever creators, Phyllis Onstad, Manal Trolley, and Rose Allen. They will share what motivated them to create a divorce education curriculum. And following their presentation, Ellie McCann and I will present about the current Parents Forever program and program directions for the future. We will be taking questions after the presentation, but we really want to hear from you. So as they come to you, just please put your questions in the chat, and Kate Welshons will be monitoring that, and then we'll ask the questions after the presentation. Okay, so as I mentioned, we have Phyllis, Manal, and Rose with us today. So I want to tell you a little bit about each of them. Phyllis Onstad, during her University of Minnesota Extension career, has been a leader in identifying and targeting program development and teaching for those in greatest need, such as divorcing parents, immigrant audiences, and those experiencing natural disasters. All this work began at the family and community level through networking, collaboration, and bringing key community players with various expertise to the table. Her belief continues to be that families are the heart of communities, and communities can, if gathered together and given the needed tools, support families through the various transitions and challenges they will experience. Although she initiated the Parents Forever program, the Multicultural Financial Literacy Program, and Recovery After Disaster, the Family Financial Toolkit, she states that it is only because of the passion, expertise, and commitment of colleagues, community members, and families that these programs continue to evolve into relevant, sustainable programs through each of your efforts. Thank you for caring and supporting all kinds of families in your communities. Today, Phyllis and her husband, Dan, rebuild homes after natural disasters with members of Watermark Mission. Their children and 10 grandchildren are the delight of their lives, and you will see a barn quilt or 2 when you come to visit that Phyllis enjoys creating. Manal Trolley worked as an extension educator teaching youth development, leadership development, family relationships, and parent education. She is a co-author of the Parents Forever Education for Families in Divorce Transition curriculum. Manal served as the statewide coordinator of Parents Forever and trained professionals in the curriculum. She served on the board of the National Council on Family Relations as president-elect of the affiliate councils and as president of the Minnesota Council on Family Relations. Manal retired from Extension in 2012 and spends her time enjoying her 5 grandchildren, volunteering as a master gardener in Sherburne County, quilting, and traveling in her RV with her husband, Jim. We have all 3 of the women today are expert quilters, in my opinion. And then Rose Allen. Rose is a retired extension educator with the University of Minnesota Extension. She served on the Parents Forever development team, where she focused on the impact of divorce on children. In addition, Rose's research interests focused on the father's role in parenting and co-parenting. She is a founding mother of the Dads Make a Difference program and worked extensively with Together We Can as part of the Hennepin County Co-Parent Court Project. Okay. So I think, sorry, I just need to find you all again. I was looking at my notes just then. All right, I think we are ready to take it away. Do I have something else to say, Ellie? Or did?
I think we need to press record. I think we missed your intro.
Oh, no, I got it. It's recording.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't see it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so I think it's time for the presentation. And I think Phyllis is going to speak first. Phyllis, are you there?
Be sure to unmute.
I don't see her actually. Maybe she got dropped out of the. Let me look here.
I don't see her on the list either, Sharon.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, technology.
Yeah. Okay, well, I wonder if we should have Rosa Manel. Would you like to talk a little bit about the beginning stages, the beginning days of Parents Forever? And hopefully Phyllis will join us soon and can continue the presentation.
Well, Sharon, I can start, and maybe Phyllis will get back on if someone wants to text her to see if she's having technical difficulties. Phyllis really was the, I would say, the creator, the innovator of this whole process. She saw a need in her community.
I see Phyllis back. Let me.
Okay, I'll let her go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Perfect. Well, I'm sorry I had some glitches here, but in order to understand what motivated me to gather community together and create an educational program, one needs to know that I experienced divorce in the early 80s, and it was a difficult and stressful time for our family. Like other families experiencing divorce, there were multiple transitions, like becoming a single parent. It seemed like overnight, feeling lonely and disconnected when the children were with the other parent, and lots of other feelings that I did not like and perhaps did not handle well, like denial, depression, anger, and blame. Trying to get help for my children and assuring them that I love them at the same time came along with feeling badly and even guilty that they had to deal with so many confusing changes in their young little lives. I was also faced with that reality that family income was sliced in half, actually less than half, as both my husband and I needed to provide our children with a roof over their heads and many other things that family needs. So I searched for answers in the community. Who could help my children? Do I tell the teacher? How does the legal process work? And what's this about family mediation? And are there any in our rural area? Can I get financial assistance to heat my home? What about support groups? So as an educator, I searched for educational programs that could help make sense out of all these aspects of divorce. There were none. Thankfully, I did find some programs and resources along the way, but in other instances, the information was too little and too late, and my experience was not unique. Now step forward with me to the early 90s in my position as an extension educator with the University of Minnesota in a rural county, but now focusing on programs for families. I met an early childhood family parent educator from the school district who was doing classes that the court had court ordered for parents that were in child protection related issues. And we brainstormed together on what it might look like and who would need to be involved if we were to design a program. So we immediately went and met with the law judges to explore both the need for and ideas of creating court-ordered classes, with both education about the legal process and of the impact on the children and what were the resources in community and how to help reduce the negative effects of divorce. The judges were receptive and shared that they were seeing an increase in conflicted divorces, and were thinking that an educational program early on in the process could really help families with this transition. So let's flip ahead to the next slide, and let me just give you a look at how I look at families. And notice you have an onion here. In the very center of that onion would be the parent and child. And all those concentric circles around that parent and child are the systems within community that support families and help them flourish. So now we can go back to the first slide. So with that in mind, the judges met also with attorneys, family law attorneys, mediators, family life educators, extension educators, people from the social services, like the people who deal with custody studies and child protection, and also people from social services that deal with financial programs. And the mental health community was also present with counselors for adults, counselors for children, and school counselors. So we did identify, as you look at this slide, some of the very important things we felt would be helpful to families in divorce transition, because we acknowledged that there was a lack of understanding by parents of both the divorce process and the impact of that on them, the impact on their children. And there were few community resources identified that actually were valuable for parents at the time they were transitioning through divorce. And significantly, the financial, living on a reduced income, maybe using a budget for the first time. And the other thing that we learned that in our research was a third of the families in these classrooms were already moving on to a significant relationship with another person who may also have children. And as you will probably know, the dynamics of a blended family are very different than the dynamics of a nuclear family, because you're bringing two family systems together. Plus, the adults, all the adults in the room, needed to understand what were some healthy ways as a single person now to move on and develop relationships with their children and other adults that would be healthy. So let's now go on to the diagram, another onion diagram actually, the next one. And this kind of shows you, I'm a real visual person, so I wanted to show you in a diagram how the community, the onion with the child and the parent in the center, actually came around together to support these families. And you notice really close to the parent and the child family system is the extended family, friendship systems, the work environment, hopefully some family-friendly policies. And we moved on to the faith system. Everyone has beliefs and values and people that share those beliefs and values, and they could gain support there as well. The education system, we talked a little bit about that, who was helping in the educational, the school system, the extension service, and other programming that might be available through nonprofits. And the mental health system, divorce counselors, children counselors, crisis counselors, and support groups, and where to find them. And then the human service system, these professionals were very candid with parents about what was in a custody study, what to expect, and what the rules were in Minnesota around child support determination and collection. And then, of course, the legal system. And the legal system was also included mediators, which was still really pretty new in the 90s for families to access and to find out about what the mediation process was like. So let's go on then to the next slide. I feel like I'm rushing a little bit here, but this, I think, is an important slide because this really has some of the bones of what made this program successful in the community. Number one, it was parent and child centered. Number two, there was a significant amount of education. The teams that worked on putting the curriculum together from their expertises did a valuable and hard job of kind of weeding out what it was that would be really important messages and information that people would need to help them through the process. And there were 10 hours of education in the original one, but there were also 4 hours for couples that had no children, because the judges and the lawyers and the mediators felt it was really important that couples without children have the same knowledge going into this process as couples with children. Additionally, there really wasn't a mandate, a statute that said you can court order people into class and it will be on divorce education. But there was a statute in Minnesota law that said that judges could court order families into education and into educational programs. So it was really a kind of a risk for the judges that originally started this program to devise court orders that would fit the situation. And then a thing that we really felt was important, that we would not have partners in the same educational session, and that perhaps that would make for a better learning environment for each parent. And we had security personnel available right in the room or outside the room, which also gave a sense of safety for those who needed that. But a real key part of this whole program was the program coordinator, because this is the person who reported to the courts, who set up the classrooms where they were going to be, that made sure there was security there, that the educational equipment worked, and they answered questions about the program. But they also were responsible for working with early childhood family education to provide childcare for these parents, because that would have been another large barrier for them to attend the classes. So let's move on to the next slide. And here you see the various classes that the participants attended. And I'm only going to talk about the initial one. You all will have access to looking at what's in each of these classes, and I alluded to the importance of some of the issues that were addressed in the classes. The legal aspects of divorce. The family law judge always started this session. And the first thing that the judge shared with parents was they weren't there because they were bad parents. They were to attend these classes and to learn about what the legal process was, what mediation was, how they could help themselves as adults facing this transition and help their children. They would have people who would help them maybe learn how to budget for the first time or work with limited resources. And that the court does not want to decide what happens with your children. Parents are the best people to decide what their children need and how those needs can be met. So the family law judge really set the stage for successful, receptive education for the families. And the other nugget that these families, and it was a golden nugget that these families took with them, was a community resource guide, a comprehensive list of various resources in the community that could help them in this time of transition. So after the first half of year, we actually started getting calls from nearby counties or counties in the 10th Judicial District, calls from the lawyers, but mostly from judges saying, how do we get a program like this in our county? We would really like to initiate that. And so there were multiple trainings done, bringing again together those people in that onion diagram, those different systems within the community who could play a really active part in educating parents on divorce transition. And at the same time, I was talking with Manel Trolley in the metro area as they were hearing about this program there, and there was interest there. And it became clear that the program needed to be relooked at, added research base to it, and package it so that it could be more easily disseminated throughout Minnesota. So now, Manel, could you follow up on the next steps, please?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. It's really good to be able to be here today with you. I can't believe 25 years has passed since we started this program, and that the program is still strong and vital and serving families in the community. As Phyllis mentioned, I also wanted to mention it's really fun to look at the names because some of you on the Zoom were part of the original curriculum development team. Some of you were part of pilot counties and delivered the program in your county early on. So it's really fun to be here and see all of you again. Phyllis mentioned I was working primarily with a program on single parenting with some colleagues of mine. And some of the issues that came up in that programming kind of were moving us towards, we need to kind of try to get on the front end of this whole, the divorce issues and the challenges that families face related to that. And so Phyllis and I talked and kind of were sharing notes about the programming. But at the same time, about 1996, the Supreme Court established a task force on visitation and child support enforcement. And that task force did a pretty deep dive into the research and came up with some recommendations to the legislature, which ended up being the parent education legislation. Just the kind of the nuts and bolts of that legislation that went into effect in 1998 were that there needed to be a parent education program available in each judicial district in the state, and Phyllis mentioned there are 10 of them, that there be a minimum of one program per judicial district. And it imposed minimum standards and length and required attendance by both parents when visitation or custody were contested or there were some types of conflict issues that needed to be resolved. Some counties decided that some judicial districts, some counties decided they were going to take that a step further and require the attendance of all all divorcing parents of minor children. So what Phyllis alluded to was that we wanted to put together a toolkit. We wanted to help communities so that not everybody was reinventing the wheel. We recognize that curriculum development is a time-consuming process. It requires a lot of resources, and most communities would struggle to find the resources to do that. So knowing that the legislation was pending, we set out to take the Winona County curriculum and develop it into a toolkit for communities to use. It gave them information on how to deliver, what to teach, who to have teach, There was an evaluation component, all for the purpose of having consistency in content and assure quality programming and good outcome results. We did our piloting in 96. We did the training, piloting 96, 97. And following the piloting and the evaluation of that pilot project, revisions were made to the curriculum, and the curriculum as it looked then was rolled out in 1998 at about the same time that the legislation went into effect. If you want to go to, the next slide is about mandatory curriculum topics. There are 25 curriculum topics that were set out in the statute that communities needed to be able to address through the parent education programming. It included, I'm just going to go through these quickly, but it included how the divorce impacted children and adults, dynamics of domestic violence and safety planning for parents. There was communication skills, positive communication skills, co-parenting skills, and conflict resolution skills. The key here was to keep the kids out of the middle of the conflict, which research had shown was so detrimental to children. There was a child development component in there, how to cope with stress, visitation issues, and as Phyllis mentioned, the impacts and realities of step families, community resources. And then there were several standards that were related to the legal process, legal issues, court process, processes for settling custody and visitation disputes, the role of a custody study, the role of an attorney. So a number of legal issues that needed to be in place. So judicial districts were required to submit a plan to the Supreme Court on how they would meet the above requirements. Because the Supreme Court had seen the Parents Forever curriculum in its piloting phase, had seen that it met the 25 minimum standards, they wrote into the approval process that any community that was using Parents Forever curriculum would be pre-approved, that it wouldn't require any further study because it did meet the minimum standards. And so counties, especially counties outstate, where we had capacity to deliver the program through community partnerships and having a presence in Minnesota County Extension, was in a unique position to be able to help move that forward throughout the state. Parents Forever became the program used in much of outstate Minnesota because we did have that capacity to deliver. There were other programs approved. We were not the only program that was approved. There were a number of others, maybe half a dozen others that had already started a program or already using a program that appealed to the court to consider their program as meeting the standards. So the delivery of the program, you can move to the next slide, Ellie, required, I think, and part of the reason remained successful was required partnerships. The court was involved, community agencies, nonprofits, the legal community, as Phyllis mentioned, people in early childhood education, people in social work, family therapists, got involved in helping to deliver the program, to plan and deliver the program to communities. It required coordination. Phyllis mentioned the program coordinator. Usually there was a lead agency or a steering committee that provided that coordination, kind of a home base for the program. Instructors came from all of those areas that I previously mentioned in order to be able to professionally address the minimum standards and all of those areas that the legal, the mediation, the child custody, the parenting, the impacts on adults. The costs and scholarships needed. Many of the programs relied on participant fees. The statute required that they provide scholarships or free attendance for parents who could not afford to attend. Informa pauperis is the IFP. So communities had to figure out how they were going to cover that. There needed to be communication with the court, as Phyllis mentioned, and then program decisions, how to keep participants safe, childcare, whether that was available locally or to help parents with that, and accessibility and language. And then the evaluation component. When we did the training was generally a two-part process. Initially, we would go into a community and meet with a steering committee and provide the collaboration training. How do we work with the communities? Who do we need to have at the table to make it successful? And then followed up by curriculum training for the instructors. So the slide you see now is the goals of Parents Forever. I think those goals probably are pretty relevant to today's issues. Eliminate parent conflict, keep children out of the middle, provide children access to both parents when it's safe to do so, and put the best interests of children first. So the Parents Forever curriculum looked pretty much like the original Winona County program. You can go to the next slide with the outline. It maybe looked a little different in that we left the legal issues and the role of mediation to later in the program, whereas in Winona County, it was kind of first on board. But we dealt with the impact of divorce on adults first so that parents could kind of deal with some of their own issues before rolling into the issues on the children, the money issues, the child support, legal issues, and pathways to a new life, which was really about moving on and moving forward. We did an evaluation within the first couple of years of the program as it rolled out. And what we found is that about 3/4 of parents reported being able to avoid conflict with the other parent in front of the children. That was a key message. Keep those issues away from children's ears. Over 1/3 gotten better at managing conflict with the other parent. 2/3 cooperated better with the other parent about the children. And more than 1/3 handled their anger with the other parent by talking it out rather than other actions. So how did the program stay relevant over the years? How did it change? Initially, we started out with some commercial videos that we purchased elsewhere and provided with the curriculum, but decided that we could provide, I think, a better curriculum experience by having videos that were developed to actually fit our curriculum better. The legislature passed program or legislation that parents could provide parenting plans as part of their divorce proceedings. And as a result, we were able to develop the additional materials. We agreed creating a parenting plan. We were able to meet the needs of Spanish-speaking audiences through the development of Padres para Siempre, and then moved things to the online, initially for the training of presenters, but then around 2012, the online program became available for parents in Minnesota. And at that time, the Supreme Court approved the use of the online method of parent education. One of the other kind of offshoots of the Parents Forever program was co-parent court. And I'm going to turn it over to Rose Allen to talk about that, as she was instrumental in getting that program going.
Thanks, Manel. Thanks, Phyllis. Wow, this is memory lane. We spent a lot of time together working on all of these things. And so I was there along with these wonderful professionals for the ride and developing Parents Forever. I also was very interested in the role of fathers in this whole process, because often a lot of the focus is on mothers because of how custody decisions are made and things like that. And through that interest, I was introduced to Judge Bruce Peterson. He was the chief judge of the Hennepin County Family Court at that time. And he was really looking at the paternity calendar where people were coming through, and it was just sort of, okay, you're now a legal parent, and here's how much you owe as a legal parent to the supporting your child. He felt that maybe using a problem-solving court model, similar to what drug courts were, might be helpful, particularly on addressing underlying issues that kept parents apart or kept parents from being supportive of their children, rather than just mechanically processing these cases. It was frustrating for him to see that because he wasn't sure what would ever happen. So a problem-solving court uses a judicial officer, like a judge, and specialized professionals who serve as liaisons to the court, and connections to community organizations for services. And along with that, with periodic return visits to court, just to see how things are going. And so that was sort of the inception of the co-parent court concept. We were fortunate enough to get federal grant for 3 years that covered the costs of delivering this kind of model, and also an extensive evaluation of the model, which was done by the Minnesota Extension. So the goal was to help unmarried parents develop the skills and knowledge to be involved parents, both financially and emotionally, and just to develop a healthy relationship around parenting their child. You can go to the next slide. So we are talking about quite a different direction with the goals of co-parent court. And when you compare and contrast divorcing parents and then parents that have never been married, you see some really big differences. And that was really what required us to develop a different kind of approach. As far as their relationship history, with divorce, they've been together. With the never married parents, what we found is that about half of them currently are together, cohabitating. 31% are dating, 8% are friends, and then there's 10% that have little or no contact. So you can't look at someone coming to the paternity calendar and make an assumption that there's been a relationship, but you also can't make an assumption there hasn't been a relationship. So the reason for coming to court for divorce is to dissolve a legal relationship and establish child support, custody, and parenting time. For the never married parents, they are establishing legal parentage. We're forming families rather than legally on-forming families, and establishing child support, custody, and parenting time. With the decision-making process with divorce, you can assume that both parents have been involved in the decision, often with the help of legal professionals. And that is not the case at all with never married parents. The mother generally has had contact with a child support officer. That's probably what has triggered going into the paternity docket. Often the father has very little information about the process and his rights and how important he is in that process. And as far as custody and parenting time, there's an assumption of post-divorce involvement by both parents around the children. But with divorce, with never married parents, mother typically gets legal and physical custody, and the father has to actually go in and ask for that. So he's got a much less defined role. Hopefully my husband gets that phone. Okay. So really we're looking at some very different directions that need to come out of this. So what can we do to encourage good co-parenting? When parents learn how to make better decisions around their children, effectively communicate, and manage the complex families that they're in, because often we are looking at multiple children with multiple fathers, and you know, those kind of relationships within a family, multiple grandparents. And emotional regulation is a really important part of this. And so a lot of the curriculum really focused on that. And this little cutie is my grandson at about 2. He's 13 now. So okay, so similar to what Phyllis described, this really was a partnership of the community. And so when people would come into the program, there would be an intake assessment, and there would be screening for domestic violence. We were very, very concerned about that. They were also referred to the Together We Can program, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. That is the version of co-parenting education that we used. And also, there was referral to appropriate co-parenting education and counseling. And you can see we had a number of community resources: North Point Health and Wellness, the Domestic Abuse Project. You can go to the next slide. There were social service referrals and mediation and family group conferencing following the completion of classes. So again, North Point, we provided a social worker. There were referrals to the Father Project that was part of Goodwill Easter Seals, and the Legal Rights Center handled the family group conferencing, mediation kinds of things. The goal was to create a parenting plan at the end. Okay, so part of this process and what I worked with was the educational component, and that was adapting the Together We Can curriculum for the Hennepin County courts. This curriculum came out of Michigan, and actually it came to Minnesota with Karen Shire, who was our big boss, what would you call her, associate dean for family development. She had developed this when she was working in Michigan with their extension service. And it seemed like a really, really good fit for co-parent court. So what we did is, go to the next slide. Okay, what we did is we piloted this curriculum with a father group and a mother group. We did separate gender groups through North Point Gateway. And we had 6 sessions at that point. And then we kind of went back to the drawing board, and you can see the drawing board up here on the wall. And we recreated the curriculum for 4 sessions. And you're looking at the co-parent court navigators that were hired as part of this process, Maisha Giles and John Jackson. They're incredibly creative educators, and we worked very closely together in adapting Together We Can for this group. And I did a lot of observation I sat in a lot of classes. So let me just show you some of the activities and you know, the visual process of doing this. One of the activities is to create a memory book about your family. What is it you want your children to know about you? You can just keep going with these. Here's more with the women's group. That was someone with the men's group creating a memory book. You can see they had lots of pages to put in, but they really loved the scrapbooking. That really, men too. So next. This is one of the activities called the Yarn Network. It's where people will toss a ball of yarn across and create a web, and they'll put a ball on it, and then they will cut some of the yarn, which shows the lack of connections that happen often in families. And eventually the ball will fall through the yarn, and the ball is the child. And that was a really great metaphor to use with the families. Next. There's a real sense of community developed. This is the women's group that we did at North Point. Next. And celebration was really important. This is graduation for the women's group. People got the certificates. You can see Judge Peterson is there. He's the tallest guy, and the participants and the people that assisted with the project. Next, okay, evaluation. I'm going to speak very briefly about this, but this had an incredible evaluation. I think I saw Mary Marchek on the participant list. She led the evaluation for this. I show you this diagram just so you can see the complexity, because the evaluation wasn't just the education, it was all of the kinds of services that were put together. So what we found out is that with the 4-workshop model, over half the participants completed all 4 sessions, which with the stress that this particular group experiences just in life, having to go to work, having transportation. There were times that we missed some people because of incarceration in county jail. So having half of them complete all 4 sessions was terrific, and another quarter completed 3 of 4 sessions. So I would say, if 75%, that I was very pleased with. Half of them developed a parenting plan, and that was one of the goals for the project. Child support payments were slightly higher compared to the control group, and we did have a control group that we looked at. And parents in the intervention group showed positive movement in most of the key outcome variables. And the control group showed no or even negative movement. So we know that the education and the supportive services really made a difference for families. So it was a great project. Unfortunately, after 3 years, we didn't have funding, but we certainly do have the results of that. And I'm hoping that some communities someday would be able to take this up again. Thank you.
Shoot. Are you all looking at slides right now?
Yes.
Okay, good. I thought I clicked something. I'm Ellie McCann, and I am an extension educator that has worked on Parents Forever for my entire 19 years at Extension. So I am so excited to have my past colleagues with me today and my current. It's just kind of a mesh, great mesh of both worlds for me to be here today. I had a program, a Parents Forever program out of Moorhead that we ran for 10 years in person. And I'm also an author on the most recent version of Parents Forever. So that's a little bit about me. And what Sharon and I want to talk about is, why do we feel like Parents Forever has continued its success for 25 years? And really the first piece here, one of the biggest reasons is that divorce is still prevalent in the lives of so many families within the United States. Also, parent education mandates continue to really increase throughout the country. Minnesota still has an 8-hour mandate for parent education, which we are quite sure is the largest mandate as far as time. Other states have 4-hour or less mandates. Another reason is we have continued to create a curriculum that has become more inclusive. And you can see one example here are some pictures from our parent handbook. Also, participants practice what they learn. So with this concept, some of the original activities have stayed similar, because they have remained relevant and impactful. You can see here one class participant said, I appreciated the course, how it made me think about things differently in some cases and put into writing other concepts that I knew I needed reminders to put into practice.
Yes, and you will recognize now this picture of the onion because Phyllis talked about it so eloquently just a little bit earlier. And we can, this just as an example of the ways that we've used all the excellent foundational work from Manel, Rose, and Phyllis. We still use this exercise across parenting programs, really. We certainly still have it in Parents Forever, but we use it in other parenting programs as well. And the way we have added to it, I guess, is we have the picture still that we give to everyone. And then we've tried to make it, as Ellie mentioned, sort of more activity oriented by asking participants to identify with a one color marker areas that they feel that they are pretty well supported. And then we give them a different color marker and we ask them to identify areas that they would like to get more support. And all of this is just a way to, while we have them, focused on what their life is going to be like throughout this transition, we try to help them kind of be proactive, I guess, about ways that they can create the life that they want as time moves on and what works best for their families. So that's one example. Here's another example. This is one of the videos that was created by Rose, Manel, and Phyllis, I guess. I think you three might be the authors on this, but it was created in the 90s, as you'll see by the awesome fashion that is displayed in the video. But we continue to use this because it is one of the most influential messages that we have ever seen that we use with families, because again, we use this across multiple programming anytime we're talking about co-parenting, because it's one thing to tell parents, hey, try not to put your kids in the middle, or, don't make them be the message person, just communicate directly with their child, the child's other parent. And I would say most of the time parents say, oh yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's not a good idea to put the kid in the middle. But then they watch this video and they have a totally different experience afterwards. And they say often, I do some of those things. I didn't know that's what you were talking about. And so it's this really vivid lesson for them about what it actually means to put your children first when you're working on a relationship with your co-parent. So we just wanted to show you the video so you could see what we mean. And by the way, this is available to everyone on our YouTube site, and we will give you the link to that. Okay, take it away, Ellie.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Stop that. You're too kind. Welcome to today's show, where we're going to see some games parents play. They play to win, but for their kids, it's no win. However, seeing is believing. So, no more waiting, right? Our first contestant, please. Our first contestant is playing the game Marry Mom. And guys, you can play your own version, Disneyland Dad. Now, the point of this game
Just froze up, Ellie. For me, it hasn't stopped my video. See.
parent. Make the other parent seem boring, strict, stingy, a drag. And the prize for playing this game, the perfect opportunity for your kids to play one parent against the other. Thank you, contestant number 1. Let's hear it for our Marry Mom. Hey, give it up. Wasn't that something? But we have many more games for our show tonight. So let me introduce our next contestants who are going to show us the game Making Kids into Adults. This game, from a kid's point of view, is pretty heavy. Parents and children exchange roles. Children are expected to act like the grown-ups in the family. And parents confide in their kids in ways and about matters that aren't appropriate for children. They expect their children to lay out the rules, run the house, and do more chores and sibling care than what's reasonable for kids to do. And I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, isn't that quite the game? Okay, the night's young, ladies and gentlemen, and it's now time for that game of intrigue and suspense, I Spy, or its companion game, The Secret Keeper. This parent always asks the kids about the life of the other parent, who they see, what they do, who they sleep with, makes the kids feel real tugs of loyalty. The Secret Keeper, another game of intrigue, requires kids to keep secrets from the other parent whether they want to or not. Puts them in a real jam. Let's hear it for those two irresistible games, huh? I Spy and The Secret Keeper. As long as we're into the realm of mystery and intrigue, let's move on to one of my favorites, Hostage. Level 1 of this game involves holding things hostage. The kids' things, to be precise. A parent won't let their children take belongings to the other parent's house. They'll often say, I bought it, so it belongs here. Level 2 involves holding not things, but children as hostages, not letting them see the other parent because of child support or other issues or quarrels. This really puts kids in a bind. It'll tie them in knots. Okay, we're on a roll here. How about a quick game of messenger service? Okay, in this game, parents turn their kids into messengers. Tell your mother you can't go to her house this weekend. It's my family's reunion and we'll leave Friday right after school. Tell your father you'll be at his house all this week and through the weekend. I have to go to Chicago for the weekend. I won't be home. How about that? Putting the burden of bad news on young shoulders. Those grown-ups will never have to speak to each other again. Okay, now, it's time for our final game. Put down. This one's so easy to do, you hardly have to think. Your mother is so bad with money, I'm amazed she can even balance a checkbook. All your father cares about is work and the Green Bay Packers. I'm amazed he can fit anything else in between the two. So there we have them. The Merry Mom and Disney Dad. Parentific, making kids into adults. I Spy and The Secret Keeper. Hostage. Messenger service. And Put Down. So there we have them. Hey, we'll see you next week for the show where grown-ups act like kids.
So as you can see, we would get a lot of feedback from, and still do, from that video. So thank you to Manel, Rose, and Phyllis for creating such a powerful video. Another piece that Manel referred to was the impacts on children. And one of the activities from that section has stayed with the curriculum because it too has been such an impactful activity. And what we do with this activity, the in-person class, is we divide the parents into small groups by the ages of their children. And we have them answer this question: how does how do preschoolers, how does that age affect their reaction to the family transition? So we give them some time to talk about and answer that question. And then we come back to the large group and have them teach back and share what they have found go through each of those ages together as a group in class. So this continues to be a very impactful activity. Another way that we, I believe, have stayed relevant is that we continue to adapt to the needs of our audience. So as I said earlier, Minnesota has an 8-hour mandate, while there are many other states who have a 4-hour mandate. Some have a little bit less. So we have worked with other states to take our curriculum and create a 4-hour curriculum based on their needs. We also, as Manel said, have the online 8-hour curriculum, and we have created an online 4-hour curriculum, Parents Forever curriculum. In 2014, when we did a huge revamp of the curriculum, at that time there were 5 small parent handbooks, and we repackaged it from 5 handbooks into 1 handbook. With these sessions that Manel talked about, we felt like all of those sessions fit into 3 main buckets of content: self-care, the parent-child relationship, and co-parenting. And then we have an introduction and a conclusion. We also have our training for Parents Forever facilitators online, and it is available 24/7. And we have a curriculum website for facilitators once they are trained. So sorry, Manel and Rose, no more 3-ring binders. To purchase anyhow. You can create one if you really want.
This is a picture of our theory of change that we developed when we first started our curriculum revision. And what you probably can't see it by just a cursory glance, but we took the goals that Manel had talked about earlier, and those are part of the updated curriculum as well. They were really all of the kind of the content and the meat from the previous curriculum were what went into our theory of change. And the theory of change describes basically how we believe the program will have the biggest impact on positive outcomes for children. And we stand alone as a divorce education curriculum by putting so much focus on caring for yourself, taking care of yourself. And the reason why we do that is because a big part of our theory of change is that in order for parents to be the best parents they can to their children, they need to keep their batteries recharged. So we really help parents focus on how can you give yourself the energy and the motivation to be the parent that you would like to be for your children. And then following that along, we believe that positive and strong parenting results in greater child well-being. And so that's just part of this theory of change, and it drives pretty much all the decisions we make about the curriculum. The mandates for divorce education really vary widely across the states. Some places have as little a requirement as 45 minutes of education about working together for your children, and others like ours, we have by far the highest in 8 hours, we're lucky to say. So anyways, that next slide, please, Ellie. This is our future directions for the program. For the last few years, we have been at NCFR, and I believe U of M Extension has had an active role in the, I think it's a focus group, which is the divorce. It started out as divorce education focus group. I think now it's called the co-parenting focus group, and Ellie's been an active member for sure as long as I've been a part of Extension. And there are other groups from across the country, And we are now working together to try to develop a set of common measures for families experiencing transitions like this, so that we can know really reliably what is it that works best when you're working with families. What kind of information do they need? How can it best be presented? So that's pretty exciting. As Ellie mentioned already, we're also working to expand the curriculum's inclusivity. Since just the time that I've been working at Extension, marriage became legal for same-sex couples, which means divorce is also a part of their lives now, rather than, just unofficially divorcing, I guess. And so that's something that we're working on to expand. And then we're also currently working on our next revision. I can't believe it, but it's been about 10 years already since we revised it. So time to do it all again. So those are some of the things we're working on. Oh, and luckily we're working on the revision with another retired extension educator, Kathy Olson. So that's exciting too. Okay, and then I think the last slide, Ellie. Yes, you can visit our website, which we'll send out these slides as an Adobe PDF. So I'm not sure if the links will work for you, but I believe somebody is putting the link to our website in the chat for you right now. And otherwise, you can always contact Ellie or me with further questions about the project. And I should also say that someone who is not out in front presenting very much, but is a humongous mover and shaker of this program is Kate Welshon. So many of you may have spoken to her in your time working with this, but we just also want to acknowledge Kate. She's the one who just put the Parents Forever website in the link in the chat, as a matter of fact. So we sure couldn't do any of this without her as well. Okay, I think we're ready to open it up for questions, and thanks again for joining us today. It's been so great and for the whole series, it's been wonderful to celebrate this program.
Thanks so much for that, Sharon. So I was able to answer a couple of questions throughout the wonderful presentation, but I wonder, Ellie or Sharon, if you can speak to the question that came through from Mackenzie, just talking a little bit more about whether or not the program is evidence-based. And both Mary Jo and I had shared some of the research and evaluation projects that we currently have on the website, but if you're able to speak to that, I think that would be helpful. Or Mackenzie, if you have a more specific question, we would welcome you to unmute as well.
Hi, I'm in Iowa, and so I'm on our Science of Parenting team, if you've heard of us, and we're just always kind of looking out for what should we be keeping our fingers on in parenting education. And one of the priorities in Iowa is looking at programs that are evidence-based, that have been through a randomized control trial and things. And I couldn't tell definitively by looking at the page. I was wondering if someone could clarify if that's the case for this one.
Really depends on what you mean by evidence-based. We had started actually to become a SAMHSA approved evidence-based program. And then that program got just taken away. So we stopped doing that. We're certainly evidence informed. And we have I think that's probably what Mary Jo and Kate were showing you. We have done we have a couple of experimental projects that we've done, and we continue to take in evaluation about the program as it stands right now. And then the other thing I would say is some of our research that we've done most recently shows the importance of parent well-being in terms of influencing child well-being. And so we're able to use that research to as sort of a talking point when we're trying to convince people that it's worth it to spend more time focusing on this than just what to do for the kids. Do you want to add anything, Ellie?
I think somebody put up a list of our publications as well, which may help you just kind of look through if you want to dive in a little bit further about some of the evaluation that we have published. What else? I see Mary Matson on with us. Thanks for joining us, Mary. Just calling her out because she was up in the Northwest with me.
Oh, fun.
And I believe Mary has one of the very first Parents Forever programs. Is that correct, Mary?
That's correct. And we still offer the program. The sessions are still the same length, but they're a much smaller audience, you know, because people can take it online.
Sure. Yep.
But we believe there are people that need help and are maybe literate with computer technology. And therefore we do, we have 2 or 3 that we're doing on Saturday, because I've got another function in my office here. And just for the rest of you, I am a former extension educator from North Dakota, and I will do anything for the University of Minnesota to support Minnesota moving forward on anything.
So much,
Thanks, Mary, for being here. Really appreciate it. And thanks for all your work with Parents Forever over the years.
Ellie, I also noticed Bill Finari, and Bill was involved in one of the first programs as well. Good to see you again, Bill.
Yeah, hi, Bill.
Just-
This is Rose. I saw you too.
Yeah, I think the transition from being exclusively an in-person program, because there weren't online opportunities when this was first created, to being primarily an online experience has been one of the major shifts. And it's just sort of, I think, the way things have happened because of the way the world has moved to a greater online presence. And so, yeah, it's always something that we consider, and we always hope there's room for in-person classes, because they seem to not, because partly the community that is created seems to be so impactful for participants.
And I know Manel and Rose and Phyllis were all still here when the Supreme Court asked if we would do create an online course. And we had waited and waited and waited because we knew the power of being in person. And like you said, creating that community. And their comment was, well, if you don't, we'll find someone else. So of course we wanted to be the ones to create that. And I just want to answer one of the questions in the chat was about our training, and we do a train the trainer, and it is all online. So it is available 24/7. Kate, I don't know if you have quick access to put, oh, maybe you already put it in, looks like. Thank you.
Ellie, someone asked about the Padres para Siempre. I'll get that right. What's the status of those materials? I don't really know.
So those were not updated just because they were not getting purchased and not used. And we really could not figure out why. And of course, in the last few years, there has been more interest in providing a Spanish based curriculum. And actually, this last year, Wisconsin, who is one of our partners in the 4-hour curriculum, asked if they could culturally adapt, and I can't think of the word, translate about 15 pages of the parent handbook. So we did a contract with them, and those are up now on the facilitator site for those who are trained. And we just didn't feel like, with us starting a new revision but it was a good time to revise or to translate the current revision because we're currently working on a new revision. So once this revision is complete, then we will take a look at that again. Other questions or comments?
Questions that you asked in the chat, Ellie, about some of the children in the videos were those children of the educators. I wanted to hear the answer to that question.
I think more so in the positive parenting videos than in the Parents Forever videos.
Okay.
What do you think, Rose? You're on mute.
You're on mute. Rose, go ahead and unmute yourself.
There, this should be better.
Oh, now that'll be better. Yeah.
There we go.
I'm doing what everybody else does. The two children in the video were, dang, who's our producer's name?
Sandra Becker.
Thank you.
Sandra Becker.
They were her daughters.
Okay.
The little boy, I think, was an actor. I think the little boy was an actor, wasn't he?
I think so.
Or was he?
Nancy's shaking her head, yes.
And I mean, it's always, I already said it, but it's just so striking to me how important those messages are for parents still to hear. We have another video that isn't produced by Extension that we use because it's children talking about the experience of their parents splitting up. And pretty much every one of those issues are things that they mention as well. I think it's just, for parents, it's just kind of a natural way to go if you don't know better, really. So it's really helpful to have those still.
And the other part of that message that we gave to parents is if you do find yourself in that situation, you can ask for forgiveness and you can move forward in a positive way. And it's very helpful when parents and children talk about their behavior and how they would like to change and would try to change. So, the video wasn't shown to, shame parents into figuring this out. It was to help them understand, and now what? What do I do to move forward?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, we try to tell everybody does this stuff from time to time. It's just the way, again, because it's kind of the natural way things go. So yeah, that's a really good point, Phyllis. Okay, well, I think we've answered all of your questions, and thank you again for joining us. And if you've attended the other webinars, thank you for attending those as well. And for those of you who have been involved in the program delivery, planning, creation, delivery, thank you so much for all the wonderful, positive benefit you've given to families over the years. It's wonderful to spend time with you all today, and especially, of course, a humongous thank you to Manal and Rose and Phyllis. It's been wonderful to work with you on preparing for this and wonderful to hear the stories. And I'm always honored to be working on a program that was begun with such expertise and care. So everyone have a great rest of your day. And we will be sending out a recording of the video and a PDF of the slides in the next few days. Thanks again.
It's been fun. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all so much.